for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have
Yeah, there'll be a 10-second gap there. We'll miss the first 3 sentences of the pledge. Okay.
Sorry, trying to do many things under the circumstances.
We need first to approve the agenda.
I would move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any changes that anyone proposes? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. And we need to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with corrections I contacted Michelle about.
I'd second that.
I'm sure you all read through them pretty thoroughly where I was making motions and seconding them both. Doesn't work that way. No, I talked to Michelle earlier.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Okay.
You liked your motion so well, you seconded, huh?
Well, it was a good motion. It passed. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Public comment seems to be a tad bit wanting this evening, so we will move on. There's no public here.
Oh, I have a question.
Oh, okay.
No, Michelle. We didn't sign that. Thank you. Who's the
Human Services.
name? Okay.
She worked here before we took her in, so not a,
Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Locker.
Evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Joined by Tracy Troutner from Schneider Park. He's been
Hi,
working
Tracy.
with my office on the permitting software we've been developing over the last several months. And our intention here tonight is to give you kind of a sample of what that looks like from the public standpoint. I think we're nearing a point where we're close to making this live and utilizing it for many of the standard permits we get. And I thought that you might
For
get
the,
an opportunity to see what that might look like.
for which permits, you said?
Well, this would just be for your general zoning permit. So if you're looking
Okay.
for a conditional use permit or a variance or something of that nature, that still would be handled under our old paper system at this time. But the lion's share of our permits are a pole barn or a house addition, that type of thing. That would be handled through the online software very shortly.
Pull the mic a little closer to you. There you go.
I've asked my supervisor if we could use his parcel to demonstrate this tonight, and he's okay with that. If at any point you have questions about the questions that the form is asking or the software, the process, please interject, and Tracy or I will answer as best we can. When this finally does go live, you will be looking at your parcel on the Beacon site, and most people would likely access it by viewing the parcel and clicking on apply for permit rather than entering in this way. But for the time being, we go in this way. And it will search based on the keywords you put in. Here's Rick's parcel. And a nice feature of this is that it works with our tax system and our Beacon site, so it's pulling a lot of that information and pre-populating the application for the applicant.
So what's the QR code up there on the top right for?
That's for if you have a smartphone or something, you can scan it and it will take you to that actual permit application. So if you have if somebody prints out a hard copy of it and then and then you'd scan it, similar to scanning a product in a store or something like that.
I see.
How will people know about this?
Well, I guess when we get inquiries about how do I apply for this or that, we would now direct them
Direct them to the,
to this. We would have it available from your home, of course, but for folks who don't want to do that on their own or would be more comfortable coming into the office and working with a staff to fill the application out, that would certainly be an option as well.
oh,
We typically have a link on county websites as well, so if your building department has a link to apply for a building permit, there'd probably be a link there to apply online, and it'll take you to the site as
Okay.
well.
so I can come into the office then?
You can, yes. I expect we'll get a lot of that probably for the first several
Initially,
years that we're
yeah.
using it.
Whether
Aaron? Oh, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm just going to say more and more people are becoming tech savvy. Some of us are a little slow, but
Is this something that Holly would be able to do, or are you going to have to do all of it?
No, Holly would be able to do this. Amelia would be able to do this. The intent really is to have any person in the office be able to assist somebody on the public-facing side. And really, we designed the admin side, which I don't know that we're going to look at tonight.
Yeah, that's fine.
But so that really anybody could do the reviews with minimal training as well. And maybe they would get kicked up for a final approval, but I wouldn't necessarily have to do every step of every permit.
So
Yes.
they can apply for the permit right online, find out if they're in the floodplain, find out where their boundaries are,
Yep.
and it's pretty accurate that way?
Yeah, I mean, it still needs to be looked at by another set of eyes, I think, at the county side. But for the most part, like the floodplain maps, for instance, they would be looking at the same floodplain overlay that we have in our office. It's the interpretation of that would need to be verified to be sure that they're, interpreting that's where the floodplain ends or begins appropriately.
With some counties, there's also a kiosk, and so if you guys are interested in the future, you could have a terminal set up, in the entryway or something, and applicants, if they show up, they could, you could direct them there as well.
Yeah, it could be done off any, there's no special software on this computer, we just are connected to the internet, so we could assist people with this from any internet-connected computer, which is handy. So it pulls this basic information there from our tax system. We ask about additional acres and that a lot of folks own multiple adjacent parcels in the county. And we're still working with the townships to make sure they're aware of what's happening in their township and that they have an opportunity to provide comments to the county on any permit requests. And this is how this is first done, and that we tell them which township they're located in, the applicant, and then we provide a list of the contact person each township has provided to us. The applicant is instructed to make a phone call and discuss their project with that township official.
So this would tell if they need a variance, if they're too close to a property line, or it would give them that information too, or, they can't just apply for a permit.
Well, if somebody needed a variance and hit submit and actually applied for the permit, we would be denying that permit for that reason, and we'd work with them on the variance.
And how would you know that?
If they needed a variance?
Yeah.
Can I hold the answer to that question
Oh,
until
sure.
we get to that point in here, and I think it'll be evident
Okay.
when we get there. So here the applicant is assess what type of structure they're building, and I'll let the board, make some decisions here. So Mr. Frank would be building something that would fall into one of these categories. We're trying to capture, every possible outcome, and a lot of these options have to do with the type of information we need to know that might require, say, a septic permit or a feedlot permit or some other type of permit. But anyone have an idea?
Well, let's do a bedroom addition.
Bedroom addition.
In case
okay.
they have another child.
Okay, so
And by the way, these pages are developed based on your
Good
current
retired.
application form.
Tell you.
And basically, we just create these fields based on the information that the county needs to obtain. And every county is different, every workflow is different. But it's based on what you currently, the information that you currently are required to obtain for a permit.
Rick's going all out. He's getting
Let's
skylights.
get skylights, so they get open-ended there, so that's really, they can describe to us what they're building really in their words. It's not us putting them in a box. We do give closed-ended options for the use. This is not something we do a good job of capturing currently. But now we're asking them to choose whether it's year-round residential, seasonal, residential, agriculture, recreational, commercial, or industrial. And I would imagine in this case we would be doing the year-round residential. And they provide the width, and I did it up top too, but I'll do it below here. And we'll say that's, if it's not square, if the grain bin or something of a irregular shape, we can just enter the square footage. Much of this information also will assist the assessor's office in having a more thorough application from our end that we deliver them when they assign a value to the building. We still do our fees based on the estimated cost of construction, and the applicant is the one who makes that estimation. We don't really second guess that unless it's egregiously out of line. So let's say, and that calculates that. We ask who performs the construction. Most applications are having the owner as the general contractor. We ask about access to the property. And if they're coming off of a road, they need permission from the road authority. In this case, he wouldn't be installing a new driveway, or, well, let's say he is, just so we can see what that looks like. He's going to change the use of a driveway. And it's coming off of, let's say it's a county road in this case, because we're actually live here. We'll be sending emails out. I don't want to confuse the state. And let's just say he needs a new E911 address, and that calculates that fee for us as well. So we've landed on the septic page, and that's because a bedroom addition requires a septic inspection and most likely an upgrade because they're sized for the number of bedrooms in the house. So here we're asking them how many bedrooms that they will have, but he's not building a new dwelling, so that's... Here it's asking if the application is for bedroom addition and what the total number of bedrooms will be after the addition. And let's put him at 4. And the last question here, that would be if it's a, an ag building or something other than a residential building that has plumbed water, and there it's open-ended. They could tell us anything they like. Because he needs a septic component to this project, we land on this page, and the applicant is told that they need to submit a septic application. That's still in the paper form here, but the intent is to develop this as a separate online permit as well. But right now they would get this, they would print it off, and they would submit it to our office. These are typically done by the septic designer and not the homeowner.
Is this, like for instance, that sheet or the other one, is this going to be something they still have to print off and bring in, or is it going to be emailed? So like they just click submit and it comes to your office and that's...
Well, it certainly could be emailed, but it's not that easy yet. If we develop it as a standalone application, it would be, you'd be answering these questions in the same way we've been filling in the answers to the prior, but right now you would print this off. You could scan it and email it back to us, and that would be fine. In most cases, though, the septic designers, they probably have a folder full of these because they submit them all the time.
Okay.
They would deliver it. We landed on this page because we had told the program that they're going to have a new driveway installed. So we're telling them they need to submit an application for access or entrance to public roadway to Houston County. And again, the intent here would be to develop this component as a standalone, or maybe incorporate it into this permit itself. Talked with Brian about that, but right now it's a separate paper application that would be submitted to the highway department. So here's where, Teresa, your question about the setbacks and if you need a variance. The system knows the parcel that we indicated we want to apply on, so it shows us that on the map that populates on the site map page. At the top, we're asking them to indicate the proposed construction and give us other information about, driveway location, wells, septic, and then there's directions on how you manipulate the map. Pretty much the same tools you have on Beacon. If people are using Beacon to mark up a map, this is the same toolbox. We could do something.
Aaron,
Yeah.
how accurate is Beacon for the purposes of determining setbacks? How close do you get there?
Well, it's not survey grade, and we have disclaimers up on the site for that purpose.
Yeah.
If you're, the way that I've handled this is that if you're at your setback, or you have an extra 20 feet, it's plenty accurate for that. If you're right at your setback, I will use what we show on Beacon unless you give me something better to use, because that's the best information we have. If they want to contest the lines on Beacon, if an applicant does, I'm happy to
Okay.
do that if there's better information, but that usually means getting a survey.
So then, if somebody questions Beacon because of the disclaimer, they would have the privilege of hiring a surveyor and really getting it right.
Oh, by all means, anytime
Yeah.
we're going off of a surveyed line, it's going to be more accurate,
Yeah.
but it's an expense that I don't believe is warranted if there's no contesting of the lines.
Yeah. If there's contesting, well, then there probably will be if it's close, but
If
Yeah.
there's a variant situation where you're asking to reduce a line, then we want to be sure that we're coming off the correct place of measurement. And in that case, we do ask for surveys.
yeah, okay.
And we've also been asking for surveys anytime someone is proposing to split an existing parcel, not on an eloquent part or a public land survey line, so that in the future, when they apply for something, we have a good place to measure from, and not just a line on the map, because oftentimes it's hard to find where that line is when you're actually on the ground. So it presents challenges.
At this point, the operative situation with Beacon is approximately how close are we on average to the actual survey line? Any feel for that?
I think it probably varies throughout the county pretty drastically. I know the surveyor's office is working on updating corners, and when
Yeah,
some areas where there's a lot of updates, it's probably more accurate than other areas where there aren't updates. But
yeah.
I can't really answer that.
Can't give a rough guesstimate on that.
It's
I get asked that question, and I never know the answer, and so I'm asking it.
a good answer might be there's a reason why you have a disclaimer up there.
Yeah,
That's-
okay. If you really want to know, you're going to get a surveyor, and
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
So within this,
It'd be within 300 feet for sure.
I
Oh, you
would-
won't
I
even
want-
say that?
I want to say
Okay.
yes to that.
Just try to paint it out a little
Yeah.
bit.
I think it all depends on the data source. A lot of counties,
Yeah.
if you have a survey points, or if you have, stuff from hand-drawn plats that, maybe incorrectly drawn, and, so if a river moves and the line is to the center of the river, sometimes that happens, and, and things meander. So There's a lot of variation. We have, I think, over 600 beacon sites, and each county is, kind of goes through the same thing. Same
Yeah.
questions. All depends on your data source.
Okay. In other words, the disclaimer, like he said, the disclaimer is there for a reason. Yeah. Okay.
So the question about the, if they need a variance, so within this page, they would measure out, they've approximated where their building is going to go on the map, and they're measuring out from the property lines, what that distance would be. This is in the ag district, so your setbacks are 50 feet. So if we're measuring out on here and they're estimating that's the location of the building, and we're seeing something like 128 feet, we're safe to conclude that we're not in a situation where a variance is necessary. If we're measuring out 50 feet, then we probably want to take a closer look and be sure that where we're estimating the building is actually where it is. That's where they would mark things out on the ground before they would build. And if it's under that, if this application is submitted and it shows 35 feet and it's an ag district, then certainly it's a situation where they need to reconsider the location of the building or apply for a variance. Let's throw one more on here. So based on those tools that are available there, the applicant then can go down and tell us, what their setbacks would be. And we'd be looking at that too when it's submitted. In this case, I didn't do a road one. I can do that quickly.
So when you see something like this and you have a question, do you personally have to go out there and measure it?
Yeah, our process, we ask every applicant to mark out their proposed location on the ground. In a situation like this where we're triple our setbacks, I may or may not actually go look at that one because it's pretty evident from the computer that it satisfies the requirements. But if it's a situation where something warrants a trip, then I do go look at it, yes. Alternatively, if folks don't like using this, they can print a map out, draw on it, and we could upload that here as an alternative to using the digital tool to draw out your site map. They're near the end here. They have to check 3 boxes. The first grants the county access to the property for the purposes of evaluating the application. The second certifies that they have notified their township of their application. And the last certifies that they're providing us accurate and true information. And then they sign and they submit. At this point, they're told that a fee is due on that. And let's see, I'm seeing it in the admin form, but here it tells them that the information has been submitted and an application fee is necessary to complete the application and is required before the application will be reviewed. It tells them that the county might conduct a site visit, that they need to mark off their buildings on the ground, and that they could contact the county if they wish to participate in that site visit. And then it gives them the address to which they could send payment. At this point, we don't have the ability to do the online payments.
That's
We
what I
would
was
be
gonna ask.
expecting checks. At some point in the future, I would anticipate that we would move to that. But for the time being, I think this would work.
You have Tracy, right?
Yes.
Spent some time here. This has been quite a cost.
Yeah, it's an expensive endeavor. It's a large endeavor, and I think it's a worthy endeavor, and that we haven't really, from what I gather, the process hasn't changed very dramatically in probably decades. The big benefit of this, in my view, is not only ease to citizens, but all this information that's being put in is being contained in a database that's much more robust than what we currently gather. The ability to query out information, to respond to data requests, or to make decisions that are based on the data that you've collected, I think, well, I'm confident will be very, very much enhanced compared to our status quo, where, one person might write pole barn and one person might write metal shed, and that all gets dumped into an Excel sheet and then put in a filing cabinet. It's very difficult to do anything useful with that data when it's in that way. You can't really aggregate it very easily.
Well, and easier to pull later too. If you need to pull a file, it's an electronic file that's been documented versus it's in a folder in one of these cabinets.
Right. This system is capable of, we could dump in all of our legacy data. It would take human beings, because somebody would have to make a decision on metal shed and pole barn are the same thing, or kind of take it and collapse it into
Right.
a few categories like we've done, and that might be something in the future we would,
So what is the cost of something like this program?
This program costs us approximately $6,000 to $7,000 a year to house or to host.
Yeah.
And then the initial setup was approximately $20,000 for the development and the training the county's receiving. But
Now-
it's not limited just to this, though. Many other departments are likely to take advantage of it. Tracy's begun working with the assessor's office on several of their applications that might not have as many moving parts as mine do, but will still benefit from the ease of application in the database.
Okay, so hold on. So you said other departments use this system, but it would be a different platform for each department for questions being asked? Or are you saying using the same template for each department?
It's all the same template, but within that template you could create multiple different
Oh, I see what you're
permits.
saying, that would pertain to each.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So when somebody's filling out an application, there would be questions that would pertain mainly to, say, the assessor's office that they would fill out, and then that information would get dumped over to them, or they could pull from it if they needed to. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, for
Okay,
instance,
okay.
they're looking at like a homestead application.
Yep.
That could get put into a system like this, and it'd probably be a much shorter public-facing side, and probably a much shorter admin side. We didn't get into the admin side here. But you get all those databasing benefits, and you also get the benefits of polling information. So if they need to update an assessment, they can pull out of the information that we gathered in our zoning permit.
Now, is there a way on here, we had talked, I know Rick had talked about it a while ago, I think Aaron maybe even talked about it. We do not have a database showing every septic in the county, okay? So is this something where, say somebody's coming in to build a house, that they could like mark where the septic would be, and it would give it a GPS coordinate that over the course of time we'd eventually have, you know what I mean? Instead of just somebody drawing, yep, it's right here. I mean, if they put it on that map, you know what I mean, that you could pull and put into it. I mean, is
Yeah,
it capable to
yeah.
try and get a handle on that?
Yeah, so we do have, I have worked on some workflows where the county does capture GPS coordinates for septic and enter that in as a part of that review or as a part of that
Mhm.
workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's certainly something that can be captured and then utilized in the future.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
Okay, now, say other departments can potentially use this, so assessor's office can use it, auditor's office can use it, recorder's office can use it, say, will they each be charged the $7,000 user fee?
No, that's for the counties. So, this portal, and it's kind of a blank canvas for any workflows or permits that the county departments want to develop. And so that's, Aaron has some, and Janet has, 10 or 12 that we're probably going to be working on. And yeah, if there's other permit workflows that are developed,
I think Cindy is who he's referring
Oh,
to.
Cindy.
The
Oh, what did I
assessor's
say?
office has got.
Yeah.
I'm at a different county about,
I think you said Janet, but,
yeah. I
Your
was-
wife's helping out.
yeah, she,
So,
Yeah.
So it'll
so
be, oh, go
I
ahead.
was working with a Janet just.
no,
last
that's
week,
fine.
so-
We-
it'd be 27,000 the first year, and then 7,000 each additional year. Is what you're saying?
Probably.
That's-
I'm not.
Those
I
are the
just-
ballpark.
I just
Ballpark.
build the workflows, but
Out of curiosity, I mean, we get licensing stuff all the time as far as annual licenses. And I know they pay per seat a lot of times, but seems steep, $6,000. I mean, what is it that's costing $6,000 to maintain every year?
Yeah, I think it's a web hosting fee, and so I'm sure that it's covering the cost of the servers and of the data that we host.
Oh, you guys host all that? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
all
Okay.
this is hosted, and it I'm not sure what the hosting fees are for Beacon. It might be something similar. It's probably a standard range of hosting, costs.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to have Tracy do too much of, say, the marketing type work. We had
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Smith, who
Mhm.
was in here pitching this, and he was much more prepared, I think, to talk about costs.
I can
He is
build
more
you a
the
workflow.
technical. Yeah.
So is
We'll beat
this-
Ryan up next
So
time
is
he's
this
here.
something you will be putting in your budget for consideration for next year, or?
Yeah, I will. It was in the budget for this year for, both this housing costs or hosting cost and the development cost. And we're utilizing grant money for the most part to pay for this.
Now, when we get permit fees, things like that,
Yep.
is that kind of going to be some of that money going to help offset that every year, or what's the?
I mean, it depends on how you think about it. I suppose it all
goes into one
comes
pool
in
anyway,
and goes
yeah.
out. The way we showed it in our budget last year was coming out of grant money.
Okay.
But the grants come in and go to the same place that the permit application fees go to.
I see.
So it certainly could, if that's the way we wanted to approach it.
I was just curious if that was how it was structured. So.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I hope this, that streamlines things. And another example, I'm working in La Crescent. I was there yesterday, and we set it up this morning where when a building permit is issued for the city of La Crescent, there's an automatic email and an automatic copy of the building permit that's sent to the assessor's office. And so they're, currently the process, the way it works is every few months, somebody over there will scan all of the permits and send them over here. But with this system and the abilities of it for notifications and coordination with information, it's instantly
much more
sent
timely.
to a couple folks in the assessor's office. And so I think it'll be a really good tool as far as communication and coordination between jurisdictions.
Sure.
Well, I'll say, we talk about streamlining things and gaining efficiencies, and we look at lean and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this is what's going hand in hand with that. As far as, less paperwork, less handling of paperwork, ease of use. I mean, that's kind of what we've been pushing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and on that, in terms of the notifications, it's very easy to do those types of things in this system. For instance, if a commissioner wanted to be notified, tell me when a permit is issued in this township or anywhere in the county, it's just simply a matter of entering an email into a stage, and those notifications go. Whereas, now that would be a cumbersome thing to do. Make
Right.
paper copies or something
Right,
like that
right.
and deliver them or scan them and email them.
Mm-hmm.
The townships, when they get an email, they will get something that looks like this. So it will show what I should have brought in as an example of our current zoning permit, and I don't, but there's very little information on it compared to this. But they would get everything that the applicant submitted. And I think a lot of these things are handy particularly in terms of, we're asking them about their proposed use. And so townships have a better idea than minimally staffed zoning office in terms of are people using things the way that they said they did, or maybe townships don't even know
Mm-hmm.
what the applicant had indicated to the county when they applied for the permit. This would give information to the townships that would be useful to them, I think, in terms of
It's very
knowing
nice.
what's going on.
That'd be a good tool to have. Real quick, when you talk about like submitting to a township automatic,
Yep.
with townships being elected offices and changing hands every now and then, do you know, do the townships have any generic email, or is it that going to be kind of a constantly changing thing to keep up with? Oh, that got sent to this person, but they're no longer in office. We got to change the email over.
Yeah.
Two of 17 townships have like a clerk email.
Well, and I guess, if we're going to be doing something like this, I guess that would be a question of
It doesn't change.
Yeah, I don't understand.
seeing if, the townships would do something like that, would be like, say, Money Creek Township at whatever, so it never changes. Because if we're going to continue to do more stuff like this, it would be nice to have it where this email will always be there instead of personal email. So, I mean, just looking at going down the road, trying to coordinate with the townships to develop something like that to stay consistent.
Yeah, we talked with a couple of the townships about what their current processes are and
Mhm.
what they would prefer. The feedback I got from that exercise was whatever emails they have, but I did notice, like Mound Prairie, for instance,
Mhm.
has a township email that
Mhm.
passes along. The trouble with that, I guess, is if you have a change in office, how do those passwords get passed on and whatnot? And if somebody gets locked out of the account, it's not something that the township or the county can remedy with. Had conversations with Andy about the possibility of setting up
Yeah.
county-based township emails where.
Or you could have like
Yeah.
Money Creek at county.houston, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a better way to go, that we would have the administrative. So if somebody got locked out of it, you always have somebody here, but
Yeah.
I'm just seeing that as maybe a hiccup down the road that we need to probably get unified.
I
'Cause then-
suspect
Oh, go ahead.
we'll encounter some hiccups here.
Yep.
And my thought is that we would roll it out and see what areas need some attention, because there will be some areas that will need some tweaking one way or the other. That might be one. Maybe they'll do an excellent job of maintaining their emails and.
Well, I know we're getting off topic, we got to get going, but it does bring up something too where, say as commissioners or even people in the public needing to get a hold of township officers or of some sort, it would be nice if they just knew that, oh, well, it's this, and if you want this township, it's the you know what I mean? It's going to be simpler to get a hold of people. So anyway, just looking at that being something to
Sure.
push for.
Any other questions or comments regarding this?
So at this time, it is budgeted for and it's paid for by grants? Is that what you said?
Yes, we utilize the buffer grant money in large part to pay for this.
For the 27,000 to begin with?
Correct, yeah.
Eric, can I ask you something? When would you expect this to go online?
Late summer, early fall, I guess it's specific as I'd want to be, but it may be sooner than that.
Cool.
Yeah, looks like a very useful tool.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing else on that, I quickly want to touch on some floodplain matters, and this will be a very brief update compared to what we've looked at here. As you may be aware, we've been in the process of updating floodplain maps since 2014, and we earlier this summer received our letter of final determination. That essentially means that the preliminary maps that we have had for some time are not going to change, and those are going to be the maps that we would adopt later this year. This is a whole county view here, so looking at it whole county-wide doesn't look a whole lot different. Lot of floodplain in the county, as you can see, but at this scale, you can't really see discernible differences between where we were at and where we will be. This is the changes since last map, so this is what we have on the beacon site if people look at that have the clear red and green areas, with the green being areas being removed and the red being areas that are added. And in this case, it's the crosshatch, which is the areas that were floodplain and will continue to be floodplain. A couple areas of where there are some significant changes going on. This is the city of Houston, so the current floodplain has the north half of that city mapped as in, and the proposed floodplain, which is now somewhat finalized with that letter of final determination, shows much of that area being removed.
That's mainly because of the dike they put in a number of years ago.
Yeah. And then Sheldon. Current floodplain, not a whole lot of area covered. The initial proposed floodplain put most of the structures that were in that community mapped as in. The county appealed this initial proposal or delineation based on consultation with the DNR, looking at the LiDAR data, and it went from the initial proposed to this final proposed, which is more area than we currently have mapped, but significantly less area than the initial proposal, which is good because when you're mapped in, it's difficult to sell property and things of that nature. The process, like I said, started in 2014, and they provided a second round of updates in 16. Later in 16, we appealed those second round of updates in the Sheldon area, and then they revised those again in 17, and in June of this year, we received that letter of final determination. The next steps here would be reviewing the LOMAs, so there's areas where folks have pursued and been granted a letter of map amendment based on elevations or floodproofing or some qualifying thing that took them out of the floodplain for flood insurance purposes. Those, by and large, carry over into the new updated map, and we're working with the DNR to be sure we're not missing anybody who was granted a LOMA and should have their LOMA reflected in the new, under the new maps. We need to draft a new floodplain ordinance. The state has a model ordinance. It's my intention to rely heavily on that. We may draft a new shoreland ordinance simultaneously, and that there's a lot of overlap between the requirements in the floodplain rules and the requirements in the shoreland rules. They're both state rules. They both require certain elevations when you're in flood-prone areas. And they're both of approximately the same vintage, I believe, and that may be due for an update. DNR has to approve both of these ordinances before we can adopt them. Planning Commission then would need to make a recommendation to the county board, and the county board would need to approve those. The new ordinance, which would reflect the new maps. And this has to happen in order for residents of the county to be able to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. So it's important that we get it done. After that, DNR has offered to do some training sessions, so that would be with county officials or township officials or city officials, learning how to use the maps and the other tools that they make available, and also members of the public, perhaps learning somewhat about how the rules work and what the effects are of having elevations at certain levels relative to the base flood elevation. The new effective dates for our updated maps are 6 months after our letter of final determination, so that puts us at December 7th, and by that time we must have the ordinance updated to reflect those changes in the floodplain delineations. Not doing so, again, jeopardizes our residents' ability to participate in the flood insurance program. The new maps the maps that are on Beacon are essentially the correct maps in every area except for Sheldon, where we had the change that I showed earlier, and I'll work to try to get an updated map up there. And my thought is it would stay in the changes since last format, where you can see what areas are being added and what areas are being removed up until that time. And once we adopt the new maps, we would just change it to here's what the floodplain is. Questions on that? Okay. Well, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to learn more about the permitting software, feel free to stop by anytime you're available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Okay, Attorney Yant.
I think I sent you all of you information
Yep.
regarding this Pelt lawsuit, payment of lieu of taxes. What it is that they're federal lands, they don't receive.
Sam, could you please use the microphone?
Okay, so the,
Now if you can get it a little closer so we could actually hear you in it.
so the payment of lieu of taxes, when you have federal land, you don't receive tax revenue off it.
Right.
So the federal government has created a scheme where they would, they reimburse us for that. And when the statute was enacted, apparently was some language in there that said it had to be funded, those payments had to be made. And 2015, 2016, and 2017, the federal government underfunded that, decided it's not going to pay as much. And apparently it was in Utah, they have western states a lot more federal land. They sued the federal government and won summary judgment, so that you have to pay. And that generated this class action suit where you're being asked to join in regarding trying to recoup what we may have lost. You can ask Carol, I talked to her this morning about it. Our sum is not a lot probably that we're going to get. We don't really have much. We don't have to put anything into this, we just have to opt in, and that's why I'm here. I really need a motion, just unless someone has objections to it, then I would suggest that we would ask and request that we opt in on this. I mean, if we get, $2,000-3,000, my expert budget stuff for a year is $2,000. It pays some of my budget, for example. And so, I mean, it's not a lot of money probably we're going to get, but for what we have to put in and what we get out, it's something rather than nothing. So I would suggest we do it. It doesn't even seem to be that we would really have to. Sometimes we get asked to participate in these things. We have to gather records and documents, so there is a cost to us, even though it's not. It's a labor cost. Doesn't seem to be the same thing here. I would like I said, unless there's some opposition, I'd like to be able to opt into this lawsuit, class action lawsuit.
You need a motion or just a consensus?
I think consensus is fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll seeing that, then I'll go, no objections, I'll go ahead and I will, end of this week, I'll opt in, and then I will so inform the board.
This is an important thing for townships too, because they're part of the formula
Yeah,
and they're always fighting for it.
but it is, and like, it affects in Minnesota, it affects more of the northern counties with the great soft
Lakes,
forested
yeah.
land. Chisago County, places like that. That's
Right.
where it really, Grand Rapids area and stuff like that.
Okay. Carol?
Hello, any questions? Saw a lot of green, covers all that red in the
Yeah.
reports,
Yeah.
those line by line and the other
Right.
ones, so. Actually, we are, oops, I have to take them off to see close. All of the funds are basically performing above budget in terms of revenue over expenditures. So it's a good thing. Our tax settlement has been posted for the first installment, and that brought our cash balances back up, in the general fund, back up to our beginning of the year balances, which is what we like to see with that settlement. There's really no red flagging items at this point. Got 6 months left of the year, so.
That's the only question I had, is if there was any one that you were concerned about.
No, you know, with staffing issues that we've had and people gone, that has made up for some budgeted money, and we are budgeted as a surplus as it is. So
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
No, it looked good.
okay, we are getting budget worksheets ready to send out. We'll have an investment report next month, and a little of the fund balance. We'll know more of our final audited numbers. So that would be good. We'll have that next month.
How far along with the audit are you at this point?
We have all the individual funds basically finished, and they are looking. They've requested, you know, documents to review in terms of payables and receivables to make sure that we log the correct things. Then we'll be moving on to the little more in-depth items like the PERA journal entry that needs to be done, our compensated absences, our long-term debt, because that goes in the overall, not into the individual funds. So that's where we're at, is moving on to there. It's pretty much the same time frame as we always have been on.
Yeah.
So you're sending out the forms for budget reviews for each department, basically?
We will be. Yep.
Because we set a preliminary the end of September.
End of September.
Okay.
So we'd like to have them back from the departments, you know, mid-August
Right.
to go through them. Any suggestions or any requests or anything, always just email me
Cool.
No.
or
Thanks,
call
Carol.
or stop in.
No, I usually review it pretty closely. I don't- Just like I do the minutes.
Thanks, Carol.
Okay.
Thank you, Carol. Tess, you're up.
We went from 15 minutes behind to 7 minutes ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening.
These noisy keys and all there. I have an announcement to make at the request of Commissioner Scott Connors, unless the announcement's already been on the record. Okay. Mr. Connors came to my office yesterday and asked that I make the following statement on his behalf at this evening's board meeting. That is with bittersweet regrets that Mr. Connor has accepted a professional position with an engineering firm that precludes his ability to compete his present term of office and obligations as a county commissioner for the 3rd District. Mr. Connor's last day in office will be at the close of July 31st, 2018. I met with interim auditor Michelle, and we went through the steps that may be necessary to fill Mr. Connor's balance of office. And we believe that a special... Would you like to speak with that, to that?
With the vacancy not commencing until July 31st, that may impact our original
Okay.
plan.
So more information may be forthcoming. And that's all the information that I have for you, Commissioners. Okay? We'll get more information to you on that point.
Well, now I can move over.
Yeah. Come closer, Teresa.
Yeah. It was Mr. Connors expressed to me that it was a very difficult decision for him, this is something he had to look at for himself and his family, so. With that, I'd like to move into the HR agenda, if I might. And for environmental services, I don't know if I have anyone here for environmental services. We recommend hiring Mark Tews, that's T-E-W-E-S, as a drop site supervisor, that's a 67-day employee, at a rate of $12.99 per hour. This is for our 67-day pool. And so,
I would move to approve the hiring.
Second.
All those, well, any further comments? Okay. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. The correct pronunciation is Taves, by the way.
Taves?
It's like it's a V.
Taves, thank you very much, Commissioner.
Okay.
That one I would not have, that would take me all day and still not got it correctly. Secondly, on the environmental services, Mr. Rick Frank, the Environmental Services Director, delivered notice to the board as well as to our office that effective the end of business day, October 12th, 2018, he will be retiring from his office. This is 42 years of service from Rick and to the residents of Houston County, and I wish him very well. The department and I, members, and I have been meeting. I've met with Rick, I've met with other members of his department and him. We will continue meeting and put a plan together for consideration by the Personnel Committee, and we'll present that in a meeting, I assume early August sometime, so we can start putting plans together on how to appropriately staff for that office and that vacancy.
Early August kind of restricts you, doesn't it? The
It's
only
getting
meeting we
close.
have in early August is the 7th.
Mid-August. Early to mid.
Do you want to amend your comment about early August?
Soon, in August,
Okay.
soon. Depends upon how soon we can meet as a personnel committee based upon the recommendation of the committee going forward. But I think we have structure in place that we've discussed that I would, and I believe we'll be ready to go to the personnel committee in short order.
So there is a succession plan in place, kind of?
There's some options that we are looking at and that we've fleshed out. I would like to meet with the finance director to make sure we have all of the numbers correct and on the financial side, and before we go to the personnel committee, so that we have full information for them. And then to the board, of course. But I think, yes, Commissioner, we have a plan in place for continuation of services.
He does a lot that we don't realize, a lot more than we realize. I know just with serving with him on solid waste and some of those areas, it's amazing.
So we're asking that you accept Mr. Frank's resignation and wish him well.
So moved.
Oh, I'll second it.
I was going to say, we're not going to let him retire, are we?
Moved and seconded to accept Mr. Frank's resignation with regret. Any further comments?
No, just that good for Rick. I know this has been kind of a long time in coming. We've been talking about for years. He's kind of someday, and now there's a day. So good for him.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And John?
Can you imagine being a commissioner for 42 years?
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have 3 items on the staffing agenda for Human Services. First one is we're recommending changing the employment status of social worker Michelle Mossman from probationary to regular. This will be effective July 22nd, 2018. And would you like to comment?
Sure. Michelle has been a member of the Human Services Department for a good number of years. I think when we brought her hiring decision forward some months back, we noted that she had worked for, I believe, in excess of 10 years as a child support officer. She's been the person we selected for our forensic social work program, and she's done a really good job for us. And we've been encouraged with how that program is taking shape. We still have a design team that has met periodically. Our attorney, Sam Yount, is part of that. Our sheriff, jailer. We're also including participation from the public defender's office, and just being very deliberate in how we develop that. And Michelle's been a big part of that. So we're real pleased with the work she's doing. She did a great job for us as a child support officer and is doing a fine job for us in this role as well.
Motion to approve the change in status for Michelle Mossman.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
We also have a recommendation to change the employment status of Amy Schrader from probationary to regular status effective July 29th, 2018. John?
Sure. Amy comes to us from outside the county, and she took the other new position that we developed for 2018, and that's our intake social work program, or position. She's doing a great job for us. We're very pleased to have her part of our team. She came to us with a number of years of experience in social work, and we're just really pleased to have her part of our team.
Motion to approve employment status for Amy Schrader from, what was it now? From, not, probationary to regular. I kept wanting to say part-time, like, that's not it.
I'll
Yep.
second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
We're also requesting clarification to approve, because when I was here last time, I believe I left it too narrowly to look at just the searching using the previous search pool. So we're at this time requesting permission to approve a competitive search for a child support officer. That is more than just relying on the last pool. We went back and looked at the time frame, and it was a little bit longer than we were comfortable with. Also, I had the benefit of speaking with John subsequently to that meeting, and we determined that it would be more appropriate to open it up.
That's too bad, huh? Yep. But we have to
Well,
start
we
over.
would invite some of those people to
To
apply, to reapply as well. And we always encourage
Just kind of
applications, but
delays
it
us a
has
little
been, well, it's only been, oh gosh, it's been about 5 months since we made a decision out of that pool, but we initially opened it up quite a bit prior to that.
Mhm.
So we may in fact have a lot different pool out there.
You know, you're right, Commissioner Walter, that it does add some additional time and delay in our child support office. Something we're not unaware of, and our supervisor in that department, Karen Kohlmeyer, is working really closely with the child support folks. I think our commitment is to make sure we have the right person rather than doing it quickly. And, you know, we've been fortunate in recent recruitments that we've had pretty strong pools. And so we're hopeful that we'll see, again, a strong pool of candidates, and we're excited to go through that process.
Also, during this this past week, we've developed some questions as part of, that we'd like completed as part of the application process that will help us further rate and select a candidate. So we're kind of expanding our process at the same time. And this allows us to do that.
I'll make a motion to start a competitive search for a child support person.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm done.
John, I have a question before you leave.
Yes.
I know, something coming up. You and Mary visited Goodhue and
Mower County.
Mower. Okay, thank you.
I was planning on sticking around if you want me to.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
okay,
okay, thank you.
thank you.
And I have an additional staffing item that I'd like to discuss with the board. I have talked with the interim auditor, the treasurer, as well as the personnel committee. And I understand the board left open at the time when we were having attrition in the auditor's office. The board left open the continued discussion as to analyzing what ongoing staffing needs are. We've had a lot of information come forward since that time. We've had the combination and collapse of the two offices into one office. As I said, I've had conversations with both department heads from the individualized offices, and we feel that at this time we would like to request the board consider us opening up a competitive search for what will be a auditor treasurer deputy auditor treasurer. We've had in less than 12 months, I think, two FTE down, and soon in January the offices will be combined. These are critical services that we are going to need to that we need to staff for, and the training takes a while. It just takes a while to get folks up and running. So we respectfully request that we be able to initiate a search for a probationary deputy auditor treasurer. We have a job description that is has cross-training within the department. We will expand that to include some cross-training so that we have good coverage with treasurer's office as well. So we're looking at really having a nimble team, if you will. And both members of the departments are here and can discuss that if you have any questions for them, or I will stand for questions as well.
Did we just put in 2 67-day employees in that office?
We did.
And I thought the need wasn't there for another person.
If, in fact, you hire another person, 67-day people are only, they're not guaranteed 67 days. However, at their conclusion, they can't work any further. And we're looking at going forward, not temporarily. The 67-day people right now, it's my understanding, were hired in large part to help us with the current election needs that we had. We're looking down the line further than the current election. When the board initially determined that it did not have, that we wanted to do a wait and see what staffing needs would look like, we had an office of 5 with an attrition down to 4. Am I counting that right? 5 with attrition to 4. With the collapse of the office, we have another full FTE basically gone. Going forth in the future, we've met and discussed this thoroughly. It is our recommendation, and I feel, I don't know if the word strongly is too strong of a word. I think we really did flesh this out, look at all the duties, including the deed work, looked at this outside of the scope of the general election coming up as to where that office would be come January after the general election is done. And even with cross-training the 3 people that are left, that still leaves a pretty big gap. Would you like to speak to this,
Sure.
Donna?
No, I totally appreciate Tess contacting me today because I've been thinking about it a lot, and for the most part, I think we need to really start planning because it's going to hit really hard, and we need, there's, come January 1st, there's audit, there's just all this stuff going on, and my plan is to, start getting my deputy to get her information together and what her job duties are. And Michelle and I have kind of talked, and she's very willing to work with me, and I'm willing to work with her. And I think we'd like to start almost sort of cross-training even before the end of the year. I mean, little things, just so we're all basically on board, so when the time comes, I mean, it's nice even for Michelle's office now to have help. So, I mean, I'm trying to help as much as I can, and if we can just get things implemented so we kind of know where we stand, and this new person would be very beneficial to Michelle's office right now because she, that person would start learning more of the detailed job descriptions that we want them to do.
And keep in mind, I'm sorry, Donna,
Go
but
ahead.
keep in mind, when we talk about opening up a search, this doesn't happen just immediately and then all of a sudden someone's there. We're looking at getting things lined up for the future. We have to advertise this position. We have to go through the full, and that takes a while, the full process. And then when the person is identified, and hopefully that would be sooner than later, then we start the training process. But January, in my opinion, and you can talk to the folks that actually are in there doing the work, it's going to be too late. And this doesn't really have anything to do with the 67-day employees that are there helping with the election.
There sure has been a lot of discussion the last 6 months about this position, though.
Well, remember, Michelle goes back to the assessor's office.
Yeah, Michelle goes back to the assessor's office, and then when I take over a lot of my job duties, a lot of them, some of them especially, to begin with, will have to be designated to someone. And there really isn't a whole lot of, there's nobody else. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people to designate to right now at the moment. So I think it would be very beneficial for us to start being a little bit proactive about how we're going to run that office. And it would be very helpful to get somebody on board sooner than later.
And I think the difference between 1 FTE, attrition of 1 FTE versus 2 FTE, that's substantial. I believe if I'm looking at the numbers correctly, just for the auditor side alone, not including the treasurer side, but the auditor side alone is 2 FTE is about 30%. And I don't believe it was ever discussed that we would be making, I mean, and we've looked at this every way we can. We've looked at all the different duties that have to be done. I just don't believe that there would be adequate human hands there to do the work with the staffing that would be left, especially once Michelle leaves.
In addition, with regard to some of the duties that need to have some good backup, which mainly have to do with documents, it takes a long time to bring someone up to be helpful and independent in that process. If you wait until the office is actually combined, the only person that has the knowledge of deeds that will be in place in that office is Mary. If anything, I mean, I'm going to be gone. I'm the one who has the additional knowledge right now. I mean, I'll still be accessible to the county, but it's progression planning in that respect, I think, is very important. And due to the time that it takes to bring someone up to the training level, to be an asset and to be, can't think of the right word, Tess.
Well, to be effective in that position, to where they aren't just doing ministerial duties, to where they're actually able to be efficient, if you will, at a certain level. We also discussed that it is, as soon as we get through the elections, we really are going to take a very serious, try to figure out a process to really cross-train, if you will, people in the various functions, so that when you do have an absence, someone is out either on vacation, heavens forbid, or sick leave, or whatever, or they've just taken another job in another community, that we actually, it is a bump in a road. It is not a chasm in the road. And we're trying to be thoughtful and insightful in how we plan and go forward. And we have really discussed it quite a bit.
Well, I was going to bring that up, that one has to consider vacations and unforeseen circumstances. I think we have one now where somebody's absent due to something unforeseen, and so I think we still stand by our commitment to do what we have done in transitioning the two offices, and I think this would be a good move to make this as smooth and what's the word, flowing, keep things flowing as we have planned to do.
And I believe you still have, if the concern, commissioners, is, which I understand it, if the concern is budgetary, believe me, I do understand that financial concern. I believe we are still being accountable to the residents, that we are offering the best services we can at the most effective way possible, but we can't just keep cutting. Sometimes we actually have to say, okay, this is, we've had, this experiment has gone on for a little bit, and I think we know exactly where we should be for staffing for this. And we have consensus on our side, which is no small feat, is it? Because we've really kicked it around as to what this really means.
So you're looking for a motion to begin a search?
Yes, Commissioner.
I would move to do so.
I'll second it because I've supported this idea since last January. That office needs help in there.
You've got a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Well, I'm going to jump on a soapbox because there's going to be an issue that I'm sure a lot of people are going to try and make into a big deal. So I want to clarify. Last year, there was a issue with some mismanagement in that office. So the board took it into consideration to hire 2 of the 3 people back after having a very long, in-depth look into the situation as far as running one person down. It was determined at that time that it would be more than possible to do so. And we had discussion during the board meeting that this was going to be something reviewed within 6 months. Unfortunately, when that discussion happened, the previous auditor had turned the videotape off to shield from scrutiny in the office, so a lot of that wasn't seen. But it was told in that meeting that this would be reviewed and looked at. Since that time, the review kind of got pushed back. The previous auditor decided to try and repeal the board's decision in the form of a lawsuit, which then took away from the review and what was going to happen. Since the settlement of that or decision of that lawsuit, the former auditor had stepped down prior to us finishing the review of what was needed in that office. With her stepping down, that opened up the potential to combine offices, which then created another potential room for efficiencies and collaborations, which didn't exist prior to that time, I guess you'd say. So with that being a new department being combined, with the final review of workload and stuff being done in there, which we promised we were going to do from the get-go, we've had Michelle come back. We had Dar Peters come back. So we've had the employees return to their work pretty much how it was prior to this management problem. So we've had some of the key players back saying this is how this should be done. Like I said, now combining department heads, we're still going to be one down, which we were previously. It's just trying to prevent from going 2 places down. So I know people are going to kick and scream and say, well, why didn't you just hire the first time? And we reviewed that and looked at it, and the circumstances have changed even more so since that time. So this is an opportunity to continue the way that the board had looked at doing it, but combining the department and yet preventing from going too many places down.
Good, a good synopsis.
I will say that in an ideal world, when you are looking at, with all issues set aside, when you're looking at, we have opportunities for reorganization opportunities when you have attrition, it is my recommendation that we staff at the service level of where the delivery of services actually takes place, the front line, if you will. And so I believe that collapsing the departments, we will gain some efficiencies in ways that we probably haven't even identified yet because we haven't gotten there yet. That said, you want to keep your frontline services going, so you can't cut at the top and cut at the front line. And that's where we will be if we don't go forward and hire for this position.
Well, the other thing is this creates an opportunity to do some cross-training in between departments, which we've wanted to do for a while. Unfortunately, we got some kickback, some of that being from Ms. Miners when she was here. So this is an opportunity that I think we've been looking to do for years that now we can officially finally do that will help. We've talked about other departments going in that same route, and obviously small community, small departments, that's the route we need to go, is more collaboration between departments and cross-training. Okay.
If I've done the math right, we would have a half, if you want to call if you want to call the combination, if you want to call half in each area, we would have a half FTE more than we have had currently. It would be a half less than was requested originally, if I've done the math right.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm following.
You know, you're talking about when I take over? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is kind of what we had talked about doing with that office before, was having a part-time person in there.
Yeah, which is what we had offered
Right.
to do, and
Yeah,
it was
and then-
turned down.
And
so,
then,
yeah,
Char rejected that offer. So we're kind of where we had been previously. It's just we can now implement it.
Then we will need to assist, if you will, and that's where the cross-training comes in, into the treasurer's office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you can't just
Yeah.
push over without filling back. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
shifting sand a bit.
Which I think will be a good thing,
But
especially when we
it'll
come
be
to
back and
tax
forth.
time with you, Donna. I mean, having capabilities for somebody when it gets, tight in there to go over there and help, and then when things are, elections and stuff in the auditor's office, they can go over there. That
Yeah, it's, I mean, right now it's just really busy in my office, and I'm trying to figure out how this is all gonna work, and I'm just, we probably won't know until we get the new person, starts cross-training, it's gonna take some time, to get everything situated. It's not gonna happen overnight. But I'm gonna work at it and see how it goes, and I think just being together will be a lot more efficient. Now it's just a matter of space.
Yeah, we've talked about co-location too.
Yeah, so we kind of figure that out too.
Commenting what Donna said, she's been over in the auditor side on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And many times she's getting introduced to different processes and procedures that, are happening. So she is gaining a great awareness of what's happening so that she can definitely hit the ground running.
Good.
And the team seems to be working very well. It's just that we really do see where we're going to have some deficiencies coming up fairly soon.
Mhm. The end of the year gets pretty crazy. Once October hits, it's January. It just goes fast, really fast.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, we did.
and a second.
In a second.
Okay. Yeah, I asked for discussion. We got that. Okay.
I would also comment that we really do need to focus on internal controls and segregation of duty in terms of the audit. Really, we might be a little deficient in that, as we even were before. So it's something that we really have to focus on also.
And I appreciate that. That has been brought up in our discussion
Yes, because
several
we-
times. And so when we will have to meet and talk about that some more, how we actually do this. Like I said, the details of it, we haven't got quite there yet.
Carol, have we been written up by the auditor on segregation of duties before? Every year we get that. Okay, so we
It's very
do
common.
have to be careful about that.
Be very
We do.
cautious about it.
Well, and a lot of it's too, we don't have
We're
we don't have
small.
We just don't
departments
have
of
that
8,
many
9
people.
people
Right.
that
Exactly.
it's
Yeah,
it's
so-
it's hard to
Yep. Okay.
be more aware of it now. Yeah.
So there are certain duties, and we will be cognizant of that going forward.
Okay.
You have to be.
Mhm.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
The Assessor's Office, I sent out a copy of the proposed Vanguard Appraisals, Inc. proposal. And we are proposing, and this has gone through our county attorney's office as well. We're proposing that we contract again with Vanguard. And the purpose of this contract is to focus on the Brownsville area. and we will, which I understand is state ordered, that we really start that quintile work and that be completed prior to the end of this year, actually January 2nd, I believe, but prior to the end of this year.
January 2nd is our evaluation date. It can exceed into like January and even February for collecting data, but
The last time we used them was to do the catch-up work for the new construction, and they did a lot of staff training during that time frame. This time, with this proposal, we would also be looking at staff training as well in the field as they're getting the job done. This contract would be effective from October 1st, 2018, and run just through the end of this year. I believe their hourly rate went up $5 an hour
I believe so.
to $125 per hour for up to 80 hours of certified property valuations, not to exceed $10,000.
Not to exceed what?
$10,000.
Is that what we paid him for the first time too, 10,000?
$10,000, not to, at a rate of $120 per hour, so.
I'd like to add that last year we had Tony Hibble come through, and she, from Vanguard, and she is probably one of the most excellent trainers I have ever come across. She took Michelle and Luke out. The amount of work that they could do and the way she trained them was, it's invaluable. I could never have gotten in 2 weeks, been able to train them like she was able to and still work in the office and get my job done. I think if you, 10,000 is a lot of money, but when you add that it's not only just getting the work done, it's doing this excellent training, I think that's a bargain. Michelle, do you have anything to say on what you experienced?
I would agree that the knowledge we gleaned from working with Tony and having her do some training was immense. That's the only way I can put it. She taught us things, the most basic things of how to measure, how to interact with the people we were meeting, and architecture, structure, time period, construction materials. It was very broad and vast. So yes, I would.
Now, earlier this week, there was a meeting, earlier this week was just yesterday, wasn't it? Feels like it's been a whole week since yesterday. But there was a meeting in Brownsville. Two of the commissioners, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Walter, attended, and their discussion was property valuation. And with the quintile coming up, I recall part of that conversation dealt with how the county is going to go forth to guarantee that we have an objective subjective standard, if you will. I know that sounds kind of silly to say it that way, but having said valuations is subjective with the individual, but how do we make this more consistent evaluation process? And I think this is part of that answer, is how you train the people, but also the fact that we have to get this quintile done by the end of this year is also critical.
I agree full-heartedly with what she's saying. To have Tony do the last year's training, and then again with our two new employees this year, puts the four of them all at the same base point. This is something that I have never seen in our office in the 20 years that I've been there. I think that we are going to have probably one of the strongest next few years because of this. It also, in yesterday's meeting, we were questioned on how, another questioning on how we are going to have this uniformity between the appraisers. And I said it's pretty, my goal is to send 2 out at a time. This training last year taught us that sending 2 out to the same area to do the work was extremely more efficient, it's safer, And it's going to have this interaction between the assessors so that you know how everybody's looking and grading things. And they said, are you going to have the same two going all the time? And I said, no, we plan on altering this and alternating so that everybody is working real close to each other and everybody knows what the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. And I think that's going to really strengthen our department.
Does this come out of the general budget or your assessor's budget? Where did the last one come out of, the assessors?
Yes.
Okay, so this would too then.
Yeah, I think when we discuss this,
Okay, I was just curious because we'll be doing budgets, so.
yeah, I think that what I came out of it was whatever it took, that it would be taken care of. I don't know if those notes are around, so I'm not too sure how exactly the dollars are sitting right now.
Mhm.
It's been a while,
It's been a few weeks.
so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I don't remember offhand.
Well, you'd be using Michelle's salary that's budgeted in the assessor's office that's being taken out. of the
That's right.
auditor's office.
That's how it went.
And this, I mean, based on our meeting in Brownsville yesterday, I mean, a lot of it's necessary. We owe it to the citizens to get it right, and this is a step toward getting it right. So I have no issue with it.
That's a very good point. I tried to stress it yesterday, and I want to stress it again. Those in our office, our goal is to hit a moving target as well as we can. We really, it does hurt us when we have these errors and we have to go back and face up to it and make corrections. That's not something any of us want to go through, and we always say when we hit obstacles in our office, whether it's small or large, that, okay, we're going to get through it, but never again. We want to make sure this never happens again.
The cost, I should say, of doing rework, because the first time was wrong, is pretty high inefficiency, and those are always lost dollars. So we want,
I would move to hire Vanguard for this period of time described by Cindy.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
my point is that we don't plan on having those. We plan on recouping and being more efficient and effective, and this is a step towards that. That we won't have lost dollars.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay. This time I'd like to request that we move into closed session for the purpose of discussing labor agreement 13D.03 subdivision 1B.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. We're in closed session. Been seconded to go back to open session. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're back in open session.
The board met in closed session to discuss labor relations pursuant to statute 13D.03 subdivision 1B. Specifically, we were looking at and discussing the terms and conditions set forth and outlined in the licensed lieutenant's unit with the County of Houston. Commissioners.
I would I would move that we approve the labor agreement as described by, in this document. I understand that it's been approved from the union side, so that's my motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve a labor agreement. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners, and that's all the business I have before you tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Action items. Approve claims, human service, and license center disbursements.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Confirm details of special meeting scheduled for July 31st. Candidate interviews for the county administrator position for posting.
I just want to add on there too, I had a couple department heads ask if they were, what their role was, if they were supposed to bring questions to ask, or if questions were going to be provided for them to ask. I would think at this time, if we're going to confirm some of the details of putting out a memo to department heads that, you know, they'll have an opportunity to meet and bring some questions that you'd want to ask,
Yeah.
you know, so that they're aware.
I did not ask Gary whether he had a list of things or not. I would assume he would have a list of things, hey folks, you can't ask this, to cover
Yep.
a little bit.
Yep.
But outside of that, I really don't know, but I will call Gary and ask that.
Well, and to get a memo out to the department heads that, you know, if there's going to be some sample questions to ask provided by
Yeah.
Gary, or if not, they need to be prepared to ask questions.
I think he said he was going to have some sample questions.
Well, I know he said he was for us, but I didn't know if that included department heads or not. And I would assume he would.
Yeah. me too.
Yeah, I
But
kinda
just in
think
case,
so.
we could probably clarify and verify. so.
But I'll just get it verified,
Mhm.
and then I'll let, the one that's been good at communicating with everybody for me at times has been Ann in the personnel office, so I'll get it to her.
Yeah.
She can get it
Yep.
out, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, did we have a motion to confirm details? Or was,
Do we need to?
I don't think we need
I
a
don't-
motion,
I
I
don't
just need to
think
know
we-
what details I'm
Yeah.
including in the posting.
we got something from him, didn't we,
Mhm.
on that?
Yeah, the
And I
final.
don't suppose you got it.
Oh, here, I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
Basically, I need to know what times where, that all 5 commissioners will be,
Yeah.
convened.
Yeah, he
Well,
sent us an email to that, so we could.
Put it
just
down
send
that
it.
it'll be all day.
Mhm.
Do we have a concluding point? I mean,
Yes. There, the email was very specific what time
okay.
it's going to start. Justin will forward it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has done the arrangements for the rooms and the times, all that sort of thing with Ann in the personnel office, and that, it was pretty clear.
Yeah, here's the draft
Okay.
schedule.
Approve election recount agreements.
I'll make
I
a
draw
motion.
a blank on that.
That's part of the state statute, basically, that we have to have a procedure in place for in case there was a recount.
Yes. And if we
Mhm.
declined participation, we would be responsible for like hauling them up to the cities, waiting with them and
Mhm.
attending them, and then returning them to our county for handling. So it's been common practice for the past several elections that our county has agreed that we will count our ballots only. And
Mhm.
in the event of a recount, I would need to assemble a team of judges, which the county would be responsible to pay for the time, but we
Right.
would be reimbursed 4 cents per ballot counted or $100, whichever is greater. And Sam has reviewed the document and had no, expressed no concerns.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the recount agreement.
Second.
You should actually specify that it's a joint powers agreement.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
And there's one for each election, the primary and the general.
yeah, okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Appoint 2 commissioners to the primary canvass board meeting to be held Friday, August 17th, 2018.
Well, guess what? You guys are now nominated because Teresa and I probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, we can't do
We're
it.
probably drafted on that one.
So, there you go, guys, by default.
Our options are somewhat limited.
Right.
I think we're going to be here.
All right.
Okay. Now, question, is there any training that we need to have before then for that situation?
No.
Well, I guess technically, if that's the primary canvassing board, I guess I could do it because I don't have a primary, but
Okay.
You don't have a primary, I do.
I might as well stay out of it just in case.
Okay.
Actually, what we're doing is just reviewing and certifying the results.
Yeah.
You'll have all the stats and it's just certifying to them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Consent agenda required reporting related to Caledonia TIF districts.
We have, yeah, pages and pages of, yeah,
Yeah. Half a ream.
yeah.
Yeah.
I killed a
Okay.
tree.
Okay. Discussion items.
Oh, but were we on consent?
Pardon me.
Did you have motion for consent to approve that?
Oh,
We have to, yeah.
Do-
I'll
we-
move to
we do have to
approve
do
the
that,
consent
okay.
agenda.
yeah, approve. Somebody second.
Same.
And those in favor of the consent agenda, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. Now we go to discussion items, okay. Teresa,
I was going to suggest, just for John's benefit, that we would start with number 3, but I actually have not had a chance to meet with Mary yet, Mary and John, about this discussion, so I was wondering if it could be, do you have anything you want us to talk about tonight, or can we wait till we meet with you individually?
I think that would be our preference.
To wait, you mean?
Have you-
Yeah, I
Fred?
think that's fine.
Okay,
But
because I haven't had a chance to find out what's going on at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, that would be our preference.
Okay.
Okay,
I wasn't under the impression that there was any action that we wanted to propose tonight anymore, so.
yeah, I don't want to have a discussion when I don't know what I'm discussing yet.
I guess why it's on the agenda was just to inform the public and anybody else that, on staff that wasn't aware that this is being looked at. The merging or combining health and human services. And Mary and John have visited a couple of counties already where it has been done, and I met with them last week, and they're doing a good job of gathering lots of information, but yes, you should definitely
Hear me.
meet with them,
Okay,
so.
good. I don't think any of us are opposed to the idea, we just need a few more details.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, my report, actually, we probably discussed it already. We went through the Brownsville meeting with the citizens along with Greg Davis, who's going to get back to us on possible solutions where they won't be penalized by the taxpayers won't have to pay he's working on different options. Let's put it that way. We don't know what the results of that will be just yet.
yeah, you're talking about what we heard about
Yeah.
at the meeting here,
Right.
where in order to contest a assessment to go to the next level with it, since there was limited amount that we could do, they were going to have to pay a $300 filing fee or
Well,
something
he
like
was
that.
also going to see if there was more that we could do,
Yeah.
or else maybe we can get by without that filing fee as a,
Yeah,
so he's working on that.
yeah,
I
okay.
did have a 2-hour election judge training, and Michelle did a very good job. Well, it was almost 2.5 hours. No, it wasn't
I
even.
was gonna say, I thought I watched the clock.
No, it was good. You did a good job. Thank you. I do have a meeting tomorrow with Fillmore and Winona County zoning offices and solid waste, talking about some grant that Winona County is considering for organic waste, compost. When I was reading through it all, I can't see a real benefit to a county to do it. I could see a real benefit to a school system or a business or something like that that would have food waste. But for us to pay for, I don't know. I will get the information tomorrow about it. There's one person in Winona County that's gung-ho about it, but I did talk to Commissioner Ward this morning about the same idea, and their county is really questioning the benefits of levying for something like that as on the county level. So I'll find
Yeah,
out.
I looked at the literature on that too, and I had the same reaction that
Yeah.
to a county government, that's basically not applicable.
And
The
it's
only
a-
place-
it's a
The only
matching
place we
grant.
might be able to use it would be at the jail.
Well, we would run it, that's the thing.
But,
We'd have
yeah,
to figure
we
out a
don't
place
really-
for collecting it and what to do with it
Yeah.
and where to haul it, and we would pay for all that. And the
Uh-huh.
grant is a matching grant, so that always kind of, we'd have to pay either way. So I'll get more information on that, but I'm kind of leaning that direction at this point.
Yeah,
But it's at 8 o'clock in Rushford tomorrow morning, so it's going to be easy. And then I wanted to ask Justin.
quick here.
And Justin, did you find out anything from that Money Creek DNR? You were gonna check on whether they contacted the township?
Yeah, and I haven't heard anything. so-
Okay. Okay, I was gonna do that, and then I thought, I had made a note that you were gonna do that.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything we can do, but the township does wanna know about it.
Yeah, but we were asked to make a motion to approve something, I think.
Yeah, which we
And we
did
said,
not
no,
at
we
this
aren't going
point.
to do that until we found out from the townships whether you've actually talked to them.
Yeah,
But we don't know that yet.
Right.
so
So
maybe
that's
we
why
should-
it's not on the agenda
So maybe
to
we should
approve.
put that on the consent agenda for next week,
Yep.
or, yeah, the 7th, I believe, is
Okay,
our next meeting, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah, and I gotta meet with them on that Thursday right after.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
It's that Thursday.
that's all I have. Justin?
You're up, Justin.
Hang on one second. Yeah, I got a meeting at the deal over there Sunday, so
Okay.
I'm sure I'll see some people that will ask. I just had a SEMCAC meeting. It was actually a conference call. There's not a quorum, so there's no business conducted. So we basically just chatted, and that was that. So it was a pretty simple meeting, and that's the only meeting that I had this week.
Okay. Teresa already mentioned, and was mentioned earlier, the Brownsville meeting that I attended to. And I also previously mentioned sitting down with John and Mary to talk about the potential merging. And the other, I guess, well, should I wait to go to 2 until you? I wanted to talk about the Public Nuisance Committee. But,
Okay,
But if
yeah,
you-
let me
but
get
you
mine done,
spiel.
and then we can come
Yeah,
back to that.
Yep.
I'll be a public nuisance for a while, and then you can talk about me. Okay. Couple of meetings, the local water meeting, and that, the concern is always funding, and it seems to be going all right from Bowser now, where there was some real concern about whether we were going to be able to get, for example, the Crooked Creek watershed structure taken care of this year. There were various things that government agencies were doing to roadblock that thing, and that's pretty well gone away now, and I don't know whether that's going to happen this summer or not. I kind of doubt it, but at least we're pretty sure it's going to happen next year. It's something that's very needed, and it's finally going to happen. The other meeting that I was at was in Orinoco, where we spent quite a bit of the Southeast Minnesota Water Board, where we spent a lot of time talking about funding, guess what, and that most of that went all right in the legislative session. Bowser didn't get everything that they wanted, but they weren't throwing up their arms and saying, we can't live with this. So I think that's going to be all right. We still, at that level, talk about whether or not that Southeast Minnesota Water Resources Board is really going to be able to continue as a viable thing long term. And we're thinking at this point of cutting it from a monthly meeting to possibly a quarterly meeting, because the tech people are doing most of the work. They don't need monthly, we don't need monthly feedback from them most of the time. So we're talking about quarterly, which would save a significant amount of money for everybody, because it does take staff time to prepare for a meeting. And so we're talking about that. I think that will probably happen. The agricultural policy bill that was proposed in the legislature that would have put the amount of soil loss due to erosion, the determination of that would have, according to that bill, gone to the state. That bill was vetoed by the governor, and so the soil loss regulations are still a county responsibility, which is what's been the case for a long time. And my personal opinion is that's probably just as well.
I agree.
Counties all look at state guidelines on it and modify it to suit the local needs. Yeah. Buffer tax credit would be nice, because then the government would be, the state would be accepting some of the financial responsibility for these buffers that they're asking farmers to put in. The bill died in both houses simply because the administration of it would have been prohibitively expensive. It's just too many individual pieces of ground to be able to reasonably administer. And it would be a very few dollars for each piece of ground. The state would spend more money, or the county, whoever's doing it, would spend more money figuring it out than they would spend in paying it out. It just simply didn't make any sense, and so it died. Now, last, I need to hand these out. Michelle needs one, which I'll take off the top, and then I got some other stuff underneath that doesn't need to be part of this. There we go. We've got one more than is necessary because Scott isn't here. I'll make this as brief as I can because I'm already 7 minutes late to be in Spring Grove, so they're happily playing without me. I suppose it's been a month ago that we heard that there was a problem with the GIS situation because people weren't sure about where they were to go and what was supposed to happen with a GIS problem. Well, my original interpretation from a year and a half ago on this GIS situation was that anything that directly involved Schneider, anything that had to go to Schneider, should not be referred to Schneider by an individual employee or an individual department head. Anything that needed to go to Schneider needed to go through the assessor's office. And that was it, was my understanding of the situation. Somewhere along the line, some people got the idea that anything that they in their department couldn't deal with had to go to the assessor's office and then to Schneider. Well, I finally got it sorted out last week that that was actually what was happening, was that people were going to the assessor's office and expecting them to simply refer anything that was brought in directly to Schneider. And that really, I didn't think was the intent of what we established in the beginning. I thought that the intent was that if an individual that had a problem with something GIS related didn't have access to a particular layer, which is what I think they're called, but anyway, then if there's somebody in our bailiwick here that has access to that layer, find that person and refer it to them so we get the thing solved locally. That was my understanding, and that wasn't what was happening. And so when I finally got it figured out that that's what the deal probably was, why then I talked to a department head who said, well, yeah, we talked about an hour, and that individual said, well, yeah, can the board solve this for us? Can the board give some direction as to that specifically so that everybody understands that when you've got a problem, you should really try to find it here rather than just dump it into the assessor's office and expect them to deal with it. And I said, well, sure, I can write something up. And so I wrote that up, and you've got that. And I have worked with 3 staff members on this, and I had a computer problem over the weekend, and I also had company, and so I didn't get done with it and get it put out there for other people, for these other 3 people to look at until this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And I haven't really heard back from any of them yet, so no way should we think about acting on this. But you've got it, and you can kick it around, and we'll see what we can do with it next week. The other issue that came up in my discussion with this individual was the possibility of using money from the compliance fund to fund the treasurer's purchases that we talked about last week. And there was a concern there because then the compliance fund would be depleted to the point where it was kind of dangerous. And I talked to Carol about that, and Carol basically said, we aren't going to take that money out of compliance because the compliance guidelines don't fit that purchase. We can't do that. So there were the two main issues that were supposed to be talked about and worked on by 15 high-salaried people for an hour and a half this morning. And I talked to Scott about this when we kind of got things figured out, and he said, yeah, we probably don't need that meeting, but this was in the same conversation that he told me he was resigning. He said, I really don't think I should do that. So, yeah, I stuck my neck out, and I said, okay. I talked to Michelle, and I said, better cancel that thing because we really don't need it. And so if I stuck my neck out too far, it's out there, and if somebody has a machete, why, be my guest, my neck's out there.
Well, I have a question that's not, Carol, the compliance fund, is that continuing to build though yearly?
Not in the last couple of years. We've actually used more than what's been taken in, and that actually, it's kind of a combination of the pictometry coming out of there and not as many deeds having been filed the last couple of years.
Well,
but that is increasing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Refresh my memory. What feeds it? What do we?
The recording of deeds.
Recorder's fees, yeah.
Okay. And there just hasn't been as much coming in, and we're spending.
We're just spending more than we
more.
bring in. Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need to officially make a change there at some point? You will suggest it if we need to.
Right, and
Yeah.
work with the recorder.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But I also wanted to point out that it's not the GIS or the GIS contract or the change there that is depleting those funds. Because the GIS contract is still being funded at the same level from the compliance fund, and the remaining balance of that contract that we're paying Schneider is being taken, or was budgeted as like the difference between the salary and what the contract would be. So that money, the additional contract, isn't coming out of the compliance fund. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think there was discussion.
Right.
The
That would
Schneider
be.
contract was costing
Okay.
more than.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Now, back to Mr. Miller.
Oh, well, in talking with Mary Marshall some time ago, and then I went to the zoning officer in La Crescent that I represent, and both expressed concern that there's really not an ordinance with teeth concerning nuisance issues that create potential health problems. And so what I'd like to do, I'll give you an example, mold in an apartment, and the landlord says, yeah, too bad, whatever. There's not really a remedy. And after talking to Mary, and she looked into some existing ordinances, so we don't want to get this broad. We could get into areas that we don't need to get into. So with your okay, I'd like to form a committee of public health, environmental services, human services, county attorney, the sheriff, and one or two county commissioners to look at what potentially, or what is being done maybe in some other counties or other cities, and see if we can come up with something that's workable, because all of these would potentially have some input into something like this. And Attorney Yount, any thoughts?
Well, do we have any jurisdiction in the city like that?
Well,
I don't know if we do.
I don't know either.
I don't think we do now.
I mean, if see, I get I've gotten calls already, 2 in the last 2 weeks from city residents saying, would you be willing to look at this? And,
Like I said, I don't think we have jurisdiction.
yeah.
Well,
When we get outside of when we are in our jurisdiction, we do have some teeth of what we use in Money Creek.
Okay.
well, and I guess my thing is, I'd like to see some sort of a nuisance ordinance go into place, even if it is just for building structures, whatever, in the county. I think if we do that, maybe some cities would want to follow suit on our example of their own. But, you know, the big thing is, you know, we've already had an issue with the schoolhouse in Money Creek. There's quite a few other abandoned structures that are around that, you know, I look at that as being problematic. You know, that's...
We want to invite to get some input from the townships, because when we were in Money Creek, they had the ability to do that themselves. They just didn't want to, I think, probably incur the cost.
Well, let me suggest, how about if, again, if it's okay with the board, that I get together with Sam and we review where we're at, and then maybe there's not a necessity to do another study, but just to clarify and maybe indicate or inform our health department, our social service department, what we can do. And maybe it's more than they anticipate. So,
Well,
There has to be some teeth to it, or we can
Right.
fine or do
Yeah,
something.
right.
why don't we do this? If everybody's all right with this, I have no problem saying, Jack, take the bull by the horns, meet with people. If you feel you need to put together a committee to keep going, then just do it. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
I don't know. Thoughts? I mean, if you meet with Sam and you guys talk about it and you say, you know what, really we should put together a committee and write an ordinance and do something, then to just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just
Yep.
report back on what's going on. I mean,
Okay.
Yep, just
and
let
if
us
you
know.
find out, hey, we don't need to, then don't.
Okay, thank you.
I spent a little time talking to Aaron about this same thing this afternoon from a planning and zoning standpoint, because we do have some problems out there, and there's no way we can get a handle on it now. So, yeah.
Okay. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Being no public comment period at the end,
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor, there we go. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned.